My favorite part about June Dairy Month is connecting with those folks who have the same passion as me, whether that is dairy cattle or being outdoors or just having a place to go and converse and meet your neighbors.
Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer. I am your host, Jason. We've entered the month of June, and that means it's Dairy Month here in Wisconsin. And today I've asked Beth Schaefer from the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin to join me to talk a little bit about all the things that you can do during June Dairy Month here in Wisconsin to get outdoors. There's things like breakfasts and 5Ks, and she gives us a lot of information about some of the things that we can do to help celebrate June Dairy Month. Joining me today is Beth Schaefer with the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, and today we are talking about June Dairy Month. Hi, Beth. Thank you for joining me.
Hi. Happy National Dairy Month to you.
So my first question is a little bit of background about June Dairy Month. How did it start, and what got this all going here in Wisconsin?
All right. So in Wisconsin, we, of course, are known as America's Dairyland. But prior to that, we actually were a wheat state. We actually grew a lot of other crops, but in the early 1910s, we had a series of crop kind of disasters happen, and that's when we started to see our dairy farms kind of pop up, and it took off so fast that by 1930, we were literally being called America's Dairyland. So we've been called America's Dairyland for over 80, almost 90 years now. And in 1970, the first dairy breakfast on a farm was held in Jefferson County. And we've been celebrating National Dairy Month since the 1930s and 1940s. But it wasn't until 1970 when that idea of bringing people to the farm to see where that delicious Wisconsin milk was made and to taste those fresh cheese curds and delicious dairy products, really, truly from farm to table, that idea has been around and in practice since 1970. So I like to think about dairy as being the original farm to fridge or farm to table food.
So why do you think they picked June?
Well, June is traditionally known as being a month of abundance. If you really want to get into the details of how dairy cattle breed, but I'll give you the short version.
Yeah.
Most calves were traditionally born in the springtime, so there would always be lots and lots of milk in the month of June, July, August, and then taper off. Now, this has since changed, given improvements in refrigeration and processing and the way that dairymen can kind of monitor when those calves are going to be born now. But it was started to focus was in June because there was always so much milk. And so it started as kind of a promotion to just get that extra milk onto tables and onto shelves. But that really has kind of cultivated into this big national celebration of not just having delicious milk, cheese, and yogurt in Wisconsin, but of really taking that opportunity to appreciate the work of our dairy farm families. And over the years, we've seen fewer and fewer folks in our working population work in agriculture and in dairy. Today, 2% of the entire United States population grows our foods. It's actually less than 2%. It's about 1.8% of the population is in the actual farming business. So it's an opportunity for us to really stop and think about how hard our farmers work, but more importantly, how awesome it is that our farmers have the ability on less land, less water to produce more food and nutritious food. And of course, in Wisconsin, nobody celebrates June Dairy Month quite as big as we do. We pride ourselves on our dairy heritage, and our state's just a hair different than any other state, and I think it's a hair better. But of course, I work for the dairy farmers. So in Wisconsin, we have this crazy phenomenon that we call it the 90-90 rule. And it's 90% of all the milk in Wisconsin is made into cheese. And then 90% of all the cheese made in Wisconsin leaves the state. It's exported. So it's a huge economic driver And we're just so lucky in Wisconsin to have these amazing dairy farms and we have cheese tours where you can, stop at cheese stores and follow maps and, get fresh curds. And, there's so many cool things about Wisconsin food culture that is directly related to our Wisconsin dairy farms. And it's so great that it is celebrated in the month of June. National Dairy Month is in June because it's like a great kickoff to summer. You can kind of plan your first couple of warm weekends, hopefully dry weekends around the state, really, and you find these cool on-the-farm events or cool celebrations happening to really just kind of in our backyard celebrating this amazing dairy and amazing cheese curds and delicious ice cream and all, of course, those absolutely fabulous award-winning cheeses made in our state. So that was a really long answer for a short question.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. Let's talk about some of these events that happened during this month. We all know about the dairy breakfast. Just give us a little bit more details about what goes on at a dairy breakfast for somebody who might not have ever attended one.
So with a dairy breakfast, there are about 70 on-farm, maybe not quite on-farm, breakfast or brunch or lunch events that happen during the month of June in Wisconsin. And what makes them all unique is that they are run by groups of volunteers. This is not a commercial effort by any means. These are all grassroots events. So that means the people planning, the people hosting, the people who are directing parking, they are all volunteers. And they're volunteering their time because they want to showcase their community. And they, of course, want to celebrate Wisconsin dairy. So I think that is the first thing a lot of people don't necessarily know about those breakfasts is that it is volunteer driven and it takes sometimes years, definitely many, many months to plan. And what you can expect once you find one of these events that you would like to attend is typically most events are breakfast. None of them have things, of course, a full menu of scrambled eggs with shredded cheddar cheese, pancakes with butter, usually some type of delicious breakfast meat, whether that's Wisconsin sausage, bacon, ham. And then, of course, as you go to regional events, there's a lot of showcasing of local agriculture in addition to delicious dairy. One of my favorites is ice cream sundaes. And you can't have June Dairy Month without an ice cream sundae for breakfast. I think that's one of the greatest one of the greatest things ever. But what's cool is if you're in the northern part of Wisconsin, they might serve home-tapped maple syrup as the topping for the ice cream. If you're up in Door County, you might get fresh cherries. Or if you're in Wood County, Marshfield, near Wisconsin Rapids, they're probably putting some type of cranberry on top of that ice cream sundae. So there's some really cool local flavors that are added to those June Dairy breakfast menus. Like I said, they're all volunteer driven, and it's just such a cool grassroots effort. So at a June Dairy event, you're going to get a great meal, and then there's usually an opportunity to learn about Wisconsin dairy, and whether that's through children's activities, farm tours, or even just having some fun trivia, you have an opportunity to learn. And I think that is also something cool about our June Dairy breakfasts and June Dairy events is that we open the doors on our farms and in our community, our dairy communities, to help people learn what's going on. Because not that, like I said previously, we're less than 2% of the population actually farms, and the average person in the United States is more than 5 generations removed from the occupation of farming. It's just a great opportunity to connect with those people who are growing and producing food that you eat every single day. And education is so forefront, in addition to, of course, food and ice cream. And then you get some of the random activities throughout the state. I attended a breakfast this past Sunday where there was a children's pedal pull contest. So kids could sign up. And if you've ever seen a tractor pull or a truck pull or don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. You'll find some great videos. Kids could have the opportunity to hop on a pedal tractor and pedal and pull this, what's called an eliminator, but it's weight that gets harder as the kids pedal further. So that's just one of many, many of the kind of fun, random things you're going to find. So our June Dairy breakfasts are so unique from event to event. And then we've got, folks who are doing June brunches and June lunches. If you go to the southeastern part of the state, you're going to find pizza and grilled cheese and cheese curds at brunch on the farm. If you go up to Calumet County, they're going to be serving cheeseburgers and grilled cheese and milkshakes. So not all June dairy events are exactly the same. And that's why so many people make it a point to mark their calendars for every weekend in June to experience all the different types of on-farm events, as well as events that are held maybe at fairgrounds, because there's just, tons of food. Food is, did I mention there's food?
Yeah.
And two, it's such an awesome way to meet a community and to learn about that dairy industry in Wisconsin that's, making, somewhere around an $80,000 a minute economic impact in our state. It's huge for our economy, but man, our communities are just full of dairy farmers who are really proud of what they do. And like I said, food.
Well, I think, I didn't know about the brunches and the dinners, and that's kind of neat. And I think what's really cool is that if you go into different parts of the state, you're going to get a little bit of flavor of those areas. And I think that's kind of what makes them unique and makes them more interesting to maybe move out of your counties a little bit and go a little bit more exploring to try out some of those different flavors that they're going to be offering.
If you're not a Wisconsin dairy connoisseur, check out the number of 5K races that go out with several of our county June Dairy Breakfast events. No matter what your background is, some of the June Dairy Breakfasts have some type of ecumenical church service prior to the breakfast, especially if it's on a Sunday. Some breakfasts, like the same one I attended last week, they had a 5K before the June Dairy Breakfast, and it ended with chocolate milk at the finish line to refuel with, and then you got a breakfast ticket. So there were all kinds of people running around eating breakfast at this farm with their race clothes on and their numbers, and some of them had medals. So there's if you miss the Marathon County PPA breakfast, which is where I was at, I know that there are a couple other. Shawano County has a 5K. That is the third weekend in June. Dodge County has one as well. You got to check it out at HoorayWisconsinDairy.com. That's where all of our breakfast events are listed from our volunteers, and that's where you're going to find where all of these amazing events are happening. As you're looking through and trying to figure out where you want to go, so Hooray Wisconsin Dairy, you can actually filter the events by county. You can sort them by date, which is very helpful. And you can sort them out if whether you want to attend a dairy breakfast or brunch or just a regular a dairy event. So an example of a dairy event in Langley County in a couple of weeks, they're having Cheese Fest. I was expecting like a big, oh my gosh, Cheese Fest, this has to be amazing.
Oh my God, Cheese Fest, this has to be amazing.
You're absolutely right. So at their Cheese Fest, these folks are going to be at the Anago Farmers Market. They're going to have Sartori cheese, and what's really super cool is they're going to have a master cheesemaker on hand to talk a little bit about how they make cheese, how they work with dairy farmers to get the absolute highest quality milk, because you can't have amazing award-winning cheese without really, really great milk, and you can't get really, really great milk unless you have cows that are really, really well cared for. So, it really does kind of go right back to the farm. But if you really want to meet a master cheesemaker, the Langley County Dairy Promotion Cheese Fest, the cows in the courtyard happening at the Brookfield Library all summer long. So if you're in that Milwaukee Brookfield area, there's going to be cows.
Like live cows are actually going to have that they're going to have actually live cows?
I do believe that is what there will be, a cow and the farmer, cow and calf in the courtyard at Brookfield Library on June 15th. So that's cool. In 2 weeks.
Very cool.
And dairy treats for everyone. So if you're not like you mentioned, if you're just like, I don't know if I want breakfast or brunch, but I want some dairy experience, you have to check out HoorayWisconsinDairy.com. Can filter it by where maybe you're traveling, going up north for the weekend, maybe you're visiting family, graduation parties, and you just need a little fun opportunity to get outside, get some fresh air, and experience a Wisconsin dairy breakfast.
If you're just learning about Wisconsin, these are great events to attend because, where else can you go see, a master cheesemaker make cheese and talk about, cheese in front of you? That's Wisconsin. That says Wisconsin right there, in my opinion. Yeah, it really does say Wisconsin. And I mentioned the 90-90 rule. 90% of our milk is made into cheese, and then 90% of that cheese is exported. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Wisconsin wins more awards for our cheese than any other state. In fact, if we were our own country, Wisconsin would be ranked number 4 for winning awards. Wow. And that's only behind France, Italy,
and some other European country.
So you can say we're definitely number one in the United States. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely number one. And when you talk about cheese, a lot of people still think of Wisconsin as just being a bunch of cheese heads, which we are, of course.
Yeah. We wear them with pride.
We do. And what's kind of cropped and what's kind of changed about our Wisconsin cheese over the past 10 years or so is we've been seeing more and more and more artisan cheesemakers popping up. So an artisan cheese just means that it's made in small batches and that our cheesemakers are part scientists and part artists when it comes to artisan cheeses, because they like to experiment with flavors and added and spices and all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally expect to find in a cheese. And those artisanal cheeses in Wisconsin are they're booming right now. And we make about 45% of all of the artisan or specialty cheese in the United States. And we're taking names and kicking butt because we are winning award after award after award. And I'm going to do a little bragging. Okay, a little more bragging than I've already
go
done.
Ahead.
At the U.S. Cheese Championship that held this past March, which is an international competition, Wisconsin took home not the grand prize, but we took home the first runner-up and the second runner-up. And they went to this amazing cheesemaker. Her name is Marika, and she is a farmer and a cheesemaker in Thorpe, Wisconsin.
Okay.
She has an amazing story, and you can read and learn about our amazing cheesemakers. You can go to our website at wisconsincheese.com, or you can check out some of these June Dairy breakfasts, because a lot of times they'll have cheesemakers on hand to answer questions, and cheesemongers, which a cheesemonger is someone who is just like a cheese aficionado. They are American cheese certified.
I think I know a few of them in my family that are cheesemongers. They're the ones who want the cheese.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah, we love cheese in Wisconsin. And like I said before, you can't have that great cheese unless you have great milk, and you can't have great milk unless you have really well cared for cows. So it's just this whole infrastructure in Wisconsin that makes us so unique, and why we really take the bull by the horns, no pun intended, to celebrate June Dairy Month and National Dairy Month like no one else. It's undescribable, and it's just a fantastic story to tell, because you're going to not just see and hear the same story at every event. Every event is so unique, and every event has just a really great group of volunteers behind it who have stories to share from when, maybe they were younger and helped out with the June Dairy Breakfast, or maybe they remember going to their grandparents' farms when they were younger, and they have that innate love for and passion for Wisconsin dairy and agriculture, and caring for the land and caring for our animals and feeding people. We can't forget that these events really come back to food, not just any food, delicious Wisconsin dairy.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. It always is,
yes.
Is it not?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So what if somebody just wants to visit a farm during this month? Are there area farms or farms throughout the state where somebody can call up and they do great tours and really give somebody that firsthand experience of how a dairy farm works?
So I would recommend checking out the Wisconsin, and actually I don't quite have that website on hand, but just Google Wisconsin Agritourism, and it'll take you to actually a lot of different agriculture enterprises around the state of Wisconsin. It might lead you to a bed and breakfast that's owned by a brown Swiss dairy farmer in Greene County, Wisconsin, where you can actually go on Airbnb, book his farmhouse for the weekend, and you're invited to go out to the barn and do chores. You're invited to go stack hay bales, or you can just enjoy the beautiful dairy cattle out on pasture grazing. And of course, that's just one of those really fun examples of wow, I didn't know that was happening in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So again, check out the Wisconsin Agritourism page. So the Airbnb opportunity. And then we have, for specific tours, we actually have a couple of places that run tours year round. And depending what part of the state you're in, you might be in the Milwaukee area. There's what's called Roden's Barnyard Adventures. And this is a dairy farm in Ozaukee County, I believe. If it's not Ozaukee, it's very, very close to Ozaukee. Again, Wisconsin agritourism. But you'll find Rodin's Barnyard Adventures. You go on a tour through the farm. Everybody gets to feed a calf either a bottle of milk or bottle feed them water. We give a lot of water in the summer just to make sure they're well hydrated. And then the tour ends with a trip back to what they call their clubhouse, and everybody has ice cream. There's a couple places like that. If you're a little closer to Madison, near Cambridge, the Hinchley Dairy Farm also has the same concept happening. I don't know if you get ice cream at the end. I'm pretty sure you get cheese. Don't quote me in the ice cream. You can check out Hinchley's Dairy Farm. They have tours operating. And then if you're up in that north central region near Thorpe, Wisconsin, I mentioned the Marika, the cheesemaker. She actually has tours of both her cheese factory and her dairy farm. They're in the same location right off of Highway 29. It's called Holland Family Cheese, at home of Marika Gouda. You can get the whole Dutch story behind it. But you're invited to take a tour through the dairy with one of their tour guides. And then at the end, you get to head back into their cheese shop. I'll call it a shop because they have a cafe and they have every kind of Gouda under the sun, plus lots of Wisconsin specialty cheese. But you can actually see through the windows of the storefront what's going on in the various stages of cheese making process. So you might see the milk in the vats being heated and stirred to begin the coagulation of the cheese. And if you don't know what coagulation is, I encourage you to go to a cheese factory. It's like the gelling of the cheese. You have their windows into the storeroom where all of these huge wheels of Gouda are on imported wood boards so that they get just the right flavor during the aging process. So that's another example of, a farm that's open year-round that you can stop in on your way to or from somewhere, or you even make it your destination some weekend to see what's going on with their dairy farm and then check out that cheese factory as well.
That's great. There's a lot of great opportunities happening this month to get out there and explore a dairy farm and just see really what makes Wisconsin great. So before I let you go, I got to ask you one question. What is your favorite thing about June Dairy Month?
Ice cream for breakfast.
I don't think anybody can argue with that.
Well, no, really, truly, my favorite thing about June Dairy Month is, it's just the excitement for dairy. I'm excited about dairy all the time. And it's not so much that I love cheese, which I do. I love the people in dairy. And when I get to go to June Dairy events, it's like a little family reunion for me. As you and I were talking earlier, as you get older, you have kids and your schedules get just kind of crazy. And for me, when I go to a June Dairy breakfast, I know I'm going to run into someone I haven't seen maybe since the previous June Dairy breakfast, or maybe since college, or maybe since, who knows, high school. But it's like a little mini community family reunion. And when I was younger, I remember helping out at June Dairy breakfast in my home county, and then we would stand around after the event and my parents would talk and talk and talk. And if you've ever had that experience where you remember being little and you're like, oh, why are we here? Let's go. That is now my favorite part of June Dairy Month, where you get to connect with people in your community. And we're so busy. And, with all the technology out there, you think you would be the most connected we've ever been. But, man, those people-to-people connections are just irreplaceable. And for me, my favorite part about June Dairy Month is connecting with those folks who have the same passion as me, whether that is dairy cattle or being outdoors or just having a place to go and converse and meet your neighbors and maybe meet some new neighbors. June Dairy Month is all about celebrating dairy, but really celebrating the people of dairy and enjoying ice cream for breakfast and some great food.
Well, that's great, Beth. I want to really thank you again for joining us on the podcast. You gave us a lot of great information about June Dairy Month. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to get to a couple of these and get that morning ice cream for breakfast, I think, now.
Absolutely. So remember, go to hooray!wisconsin.dairy.com, and that's where you're going to find the latest and greatest listings of Wisconsin dairy events and June Dairy breakfast/brunches. And if you are indeed looking for a farm tour, I'm going to put a plug in again for the Wisconsin Agritourism Council. Google them, and that's going to help you find some of those farms that are open for business, and then you can set up a tour with year-round.
All right. Thanks for that, Beth, and thanks again for joining us.
All right. Thanks for having me. And of course, everyone get outdoors and enjoy National Dairy Month.
I want to thank Beth again for joining me on the podcast this week. She really made a good point in saying that June is really the kickoff to summer. And what better way to kick off summer than getting out to a dairy farm and checking it out and just enjoying a breakfast or taking a farm tour or doing a 5K. Anything really that you can think of. It's just the perfect time with the weather warming up to get outside and really experience Wisconsin for what it's known for as being, America's dairyland. I've got links to all the things she talked about in the show notes for the farm tours, for the dairy breakfasts. So check them out. If you've never been to one, please get out there and check it out. You've got to experience it. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to really get a first-hand experience of what Wisconsin's all about as you head out to be one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. Thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. For more great information about being an outdoor explorer, visit our website at wisconsinsoutdoorexplorer.com. Be sure to check out the blog page and follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.